You're in the algorithm, dear.
Volatile and highly unpredictable. Memes, GIFs,
Danknotes.
He's a degenerate.
Very rare.
This is a random, chaotic sequence of meaningless events.
This type is interested in art.
I like this. This is like science.
Business. It's very volatile.
People bubble, people bubble, people. This is like science.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dankness. I am Art Gnome.
I'm Dan Sickle.
Supposed to be weird. Really weird.
And we're hosting some of the best minds in the cryptosphere for a conversation about their work, their life, and digging into a bit of the crypto mythology.
So, you know, when we were talking about putting this together, we were thinking, how can we sort of, you know, mix it up a little bit, get some answers from our guests that, you know, they sort of haven't given everybody else. So show sides to who they are and what they do that they don't often talk about in a traditional interview setting. So we came up with our own little silly concoction of questions and formats to you know, get to know the artists that make up the cryptosphere in new and more perhaps intimate ways.
I like it. And I am super psyched, Dan, for today's episode. We'll be talking to my favorite self-described degen, Deeze. Maybe Deeze. One of the nicest guys in the entire community. I was in Deeze's fantasy football league last year. Spent too much money to get in and play with folks that were much better than me. But he's just a total sweetheart. Everyone I know loves Deeze, and really excited to have a chance to learn more about him today.
So
yes, excited to get to it. Thank you all for coming today.
Floor, third dank
we give you
left.
the Dankness.
Supposed to be weird. Really weird.
In a world where digital art has been historically undervalued, one film is here to set the record straight. Featuring over 100 artists, collectors, and developers, each an important voice in the NFT community, partially funded with the cutest NFT project you've ever seen, Depop Studios presents I'm New Here. Learn more and mint your newbie today at newhere.xyz.
And are we back? I think we're back. We're here. The segment we like to call Show and Tell, where Art Gnome and I, we each choose something, or one of us chooses something, to share or to show, whether relevant to the cryptosphere or not. And you know, we jam on it, we wax on it for a little bit just to get us warmed up. Art Gnome, I'm wondering what you've been thinking about this week. What's going on in the world of the gnome?
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, it's actually been a little while since we did our last round of episodes. So lots going on in the personal life and as professional as I get, professional life. So first things important to know, I shaved off all my hair and I trimmed my beard, and nobody recognizes me anymore.
He's got a boy face under there for everybody who hasn't seen him. Art Gnome has a solid like 16-year-old complexion. That skin hasn't seen the sun, I don't know, in decades maybe, but
well, I
no
moisturize.
Pores.
Yeah, I moisturize a lot, and that helps. But you know, I have noticed that the headband doesn't really work so well anymore. I don't know. It's just like it fit better with the long beard and the long hair. But yeah, so cut all my hair off, back up in Massachusetts. Mrs. Art Gnome and I were down in Florida for a few months for the winter, which was nice, other than a car accident that we got into, but everybody's doing better on that front. And then on the business front, lots of good stuff going on with Club NFT and Right Click Save. Actually found out this morning that Right Click Save just put out its 200th article. So
200. That's an achievement, man.
To put that in perspective, it's been like a year and a half, less than a year and a half, and we pretty much have Alex Esterick doing this almost entirely by himself. He has, some help from the rest of us here and there, but the guy is just amazing. Super lucky to work with him. For folks that don't know, Right Click Save is about culture and Web3s, mostly focused on art and NFT culture. So 2 years ago or so, when I started my company, I felt like, there was a lack of good writing treating this whole NFT crypto art movement with the same level of respect that sort of traditional art and artists and art collectors get. So encourage you to check that out. We're at 200 articles. And then on the Club NFT side, some exciting news. So Dan, as I think you know, and for folks that don't know what Club NFT is, I started this company 2.5 years ago because as an early collector, a lot of my NFTs ended up kind of breaking, after that first wave, 2017, 2018. And
you're talking
I learned
on a Scribe for the most part?
Well,
what are some of the chains that,
Yeah, a lot of people don't know, like the OGs that were collecting in like 2016, 17, and 18. About half the marketplaces went out of business by like end of 2018, early 2019. Wow. So we're talking like a Scribe. There was additional digital objects. I always forget the other big one. Rare Art Labs, I think, was the other one. And like that may not sound like a lot, but back then we only had maybe a dozen NFT marketplaces. So what we learned when a lot of these went out of business is that the art itself for NFTs doesn't always live on the blockchain. In fact, it almost never does. Like 90% of the time, it lives somewhere else. And collectors that don't realize this, they think, oh, I bought an NFT, so like I don't have to worry. It's like the whole point is like self-custody and like decentralization, and I don't have to depend on anyone else. Exactly. Yeah, just like crypto, right? Like the whole point is to sort of only have to rely on yourself. But indeed, that is almost never the case. So I won't go into all the crazy things we've built, but we essentially built a system that allows collectors to back up all of their NFTs so that they don't lose that connection between the art and the token. Now, there are some NFTs that are built in a way that can't be backed up. And it's good to go and read and learn about those too. But essentially, it like spent my entire life for the last 2 years trying to protect this ecosystem and build the missing tooling to like give collectors control over their own collection, given how much emotional energy they invest in and how much money they've spent and time in this space. And we've been giving it away for free for the better part of 2 years. But go ahead.
And it's really easy to do. I mean, you guys also made it a very, very straightforward process for people to log on and actually back up the stuff that they've put a lot of time and value into, collecting.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think for anyone that's tried to do it manually, and there are only a few that are brave enough to have attempted, it's like you got to be pretty technical to try to back these things up manually, and a lot of people don't even know that they need to back them up. But yeah, we're at a point in time where we need to shift and start charging. So we went and talked to all of our users, and we're like, hey, what's a reasonable price, and what sort of additional features would you want? And this has been going on for like the last 6 months or so. And this week we announced the latest version of the software. Super, super excited. So we've added valuation. I don't know, anyone that collects NFTs may have tried to use other sites for valuation. And I'm often disappointed. Either like whole sections of my NFTs like get no valuation at all, or the numbers just seem wrong.
Totally.
I don't know of any any good or bad valuation systems for Tezos side. We're doing Tezos and Ethereum, so we've got that nailed. This awesome dashboard that kind of positions you and your collection relative to other collectors.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, folks can sign up now for like super reasonable price. I don't know if we'll still have the discount by the time this episode goes live, but maybe we can get a special Dankness discount going. And I'm optimistic that all the work we've done for free in the last few years, helping to protect people's collections and get articles out through Right Click Save, that the community will come back and support us so that we can keep performing that service. So it feels good. It feels good, man. I'm super proud of the team. Feel great about what we're putting out there. The feedback early on is good. We're starting to see people sign up. And like, as you know, with your documentary, all of these ventures where you're like multi-year ventures where you put like everything into it and you don't really know like if it's going to work like long term, like, are you going to find a model where people are going to support you in this or appreciate it and be able to move forward? There's like, we're not out of the woods yet, but there's definitely a big sigh of relief that we're moving towards trying to become sustainable. And I just feel really proud and good about what the team has done.
Yeah, and I mean, we sort of breezed a little too quickly past right click save, because I think that like that's also, I think that these two organizations really, they kind of go hand in hand, right? I mean, like, I think that right click save in so many ways, and this is not coming from somebody who has worked or been or written for right click save, but I mean, it's such an important place on the web that to help anybody sort of like understand what's going on here, and to start learning about, I mean, not just crypto art, but also digital art in general. Like, there's just some incredible writing on there that sort of throughout the past several months has also given me the language to talk about certain things that are happening here. So it's just like, it's an incredible resource, and I like it's yeah, it's wild to see. I saw your post today about 200 articles, and I was like, not surprised at all. But I really like, it's always so impressive how the team there manages to just keep pumping out like great, thoughtful writing.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I know. I did, the Art Gnome blog post on Art and Tech for like 4 or 5 years. That's kind of how I got into the space and met a lot of people or whatever. But that's sort of a different thing, right? That's me, loudmouth Art Gnome Jason, like expressing my views, which, because I think they're sometimes polarizing, maybe often even get more attention than they should. But like, what impresses me about Alex and RCS is that really from the beginning, it was about like, how do we give everybody in the community a voice and sort of intentionally bring up opposing opinions, right? Because this space is rich in that way that, you can find sort of different subsegments within the crypto art and NFT space that have very different philosophies or political views or backgrounds. And rather than only hold one up, really trying to create almost a stage to give lots of people an opportunity to present their view and their work and kind of have dialogue and conversation around it, has always been the vision. And I think it's pretty critical, maybe even more so in the bear market years, to keeping our culture going and alive. Not that just right click save alone can do that, but like, we have to invest our time and energy and money into the culture if we want it to be more than just like this footnote or passing trend.
For sure. And also making sure that like it exists in some sort of functional way for like when everybody does show up again, which again then sort of goes back to Club NFT too, and like all of like the actual, like, it just makes sense. Also, speaking as somebody who doesn't work for Club NFT, like I went there, backed up my NFTs. It was the easiest thing to do. They like literally send you an email telling you when it's done. Will absolutely be subscribing to it also, just because personally, I've just put a lot of time trying to figure this out for myself, figure out what I like about collecting, and to build my own collection. And I think like the token is the artwork, sure, but like I would be very unhappy if I just didn't have any way of seeing what artwork was attached to certain tokens that are in my wallet in a few years' time. So just if you are collecting, if you even have a few $100 invested in crypto art or NFTs, like definitely check out Club NFT and what they've got going on, and just do yourself a favor. It's similar to the photos on your phone, right? You just want to make sure that they're there. And
Yeah.
Art Gnome has done, again, a really good job of thinking ahead to where all of us were at coming into the space at the end of 2020 and 2021, being like willfully blissfully ignorant. But he's been there, and it's sort of, it's very worth listening to what he said.
I appreciate that. That means a lot, Dan. Yeah, and I mean, I think the way that I've learned to look at it is like, once you stop thinking about whether or not something's going to break and just realize that everything breaks, I mean, it's just entropy. That's the way it is. And you stop asking, is this going to break? And you start asking, how is this going to break? It's kind of shifts the way you look at that everything, particularly things that you're collecting that are dear to you, that you take care of. So, whether or not you use Club NFT, ask yourself the question, like, what will it look like when my NFTs break? Not will they break, but when they break, how will they break? Why will they break? What will that look like? And what steps do I need to take, whether I use Club NFT or otherwise, to make sure that I preserve those? So that would be my ask, is that really folks just get more curious about the NFTs. Get smart about your NFTs.
Smart, back them up, get a cold wallet, back them up.
Get smart.
And with that,
is there someone at the door?
It sounds like there is somebody at the door. I think we have to wrap this up because I guess Deeze is chilling outside and it's a little cold.
He's really drilling on the doorbell, man. Deeze, ease up. Ease up, Deeze.
We will be right back and let him in, but first, a pre-roll.
Greetings all. This is Stella, one of the minds behind the Dankness, and I'm here today with a special message on behalf of Operating System. Are you building something in the space and need a team? Operating System designs products for startups and established brands in the digital art space. They work with companies that you should be familiar with, like Club NFT, Right Click Save, LaRandom, and even this podcast. So if you want to talk about a project or just chat about art, design, and development, book a discovery call today at operatingsystem.io/dank.
And welcome back to the Dankness. For this very special episode, we have Deeze, the self-described degenerate art gambler, collector, and one of the most enigmatic and enthusiastic voices in the crypto art scene. Deeze is pseudonymous and known for possessing an incredible collection of NFTs, from Cryptopunks to Artblocks, Drifter Shoots, to PFPs like Bored Apes, to Killer Acid and X-Copy, Rare Pepes, and Fake Rares. His taste is broad and encompasses a lot of the best, stickiest projects in the crypto art NFT pantheon. To qualify Deeze as a tastemaker seems only partially correct, as he also represents something more dimensional than simply being a tastemaker within the crypto art community. I say this because he seems like he's living the best version of his reality most days of the week, and a lot of the artists I know consistently single him out as one of the real ones. Even the most critical collectors have high praise for Deeze. In the metaphorical cafeteria of the University of Cryptoart, I imagine that Deeze has earned an open invitation to any table he wants to sit at, and that's mostly because he embodies unmatchable vibes. To learn more about Deeze, you can find him on Twitter at Deeze, D-E-E-Z-E. And there you can find links to his galleries, which I highly suggest checking out, as well as his Degen diaries, his art editions, his dabbing guide, and importantly, links to all of his podcasts. We Do a Little is a great program that's lucky enough to call Deeze a host, and I encourage you to check it out there at your leisure.
Danknotes.
Today, he is with us. Deeze, I am super, super stoked that we're finally making this happen, man.
That was the nicest intro I've ever gotten. I literally sent you one line. I was like, I don't have a biography. I think you could just say I'm a degenerate art collector. And
He's a degenerate.
That was not what I expected. That was so good. So thank you so much for the kind words. Glad to be here. Glad to be vibing with you.
I feel like I've been so aware of your presence, in various communities for a while. Since I started like learning about what this sort of these spaces all were about. But I feel like I actually haven't heard kind of like how you fell into this. Like how you sort of found yourself here on the art side of things. And as much as you'd like to share, I'd love to sort of get a taste for what that story is.
Yeah, I could. I'll try to keep it brief because sometimes I'll tell this story and I look and I'm like, holy crap, it's been 20 minutes. So I will say that originally I got into the crypto space in 2017. I was somebody who was playing video games like 8 to 16 hours a day. I was playing at my old job, playing on my phone, playing when I got home and going to bed, and just basically doing that over and over again. Was also a struggling daily fantasy sports player, was really into FanDuel, DraftKings, all that stuff. And in 2017, some of my daily fantasy friends were just talking about these crypto tokens and all the money they were making and how much more profitable it was compared to what we were doing with daily fantasy. And I looked at them and I'm like, well, I've been doing better in DFS than you. And why am I not making as much money? Maybe I need to get into this stuff. So I took all of my money out of DraftKings and FanDuel, which was like less than $5,000 at the time. Like I said, I was a struggling, broke, just graduated college in 2017. And I put it all into Litecoin and Ethereum on Coinbase, not even Coinbase Pro, just ate the fees on the Coinbase app. And within a week, I'm on Binance, I'm on BitGrail, I'm on Cryptopia, Bittrex, whatever exchange I can make an account. I was going on and I was just buying garbage. Like I would just read what Loomdart and Cred and Kobe and a bunch of people on Twitter, Path, would talk about, and I would just buy it. And that December was just a magical time because everything went up a ton and I thought I was a genius. And then over 2018, I lost everything I made. And I got really humbled. At the time, I think my only idea of NFTs was CryptoKitties, and I thought they were fucking stupid, so I just ignored them. I didn't really... I do remember reading about Rare Pepes. There was like some dude who lived on a boat, and there was an article about him and all the money he made with Rare Pepes, and I was like, I think I missed this. Like this was happening in like 2017, 2016. I'm late. Like I'm just going to ignore this. But in 2020, fast forward, pandemic happens. I've been dollar cost averaging into ETH and Tezos for like 2 years at that point. And I was more focused on risk management and trying not to lose the amount I was able to DCA. We're working from home. I'm in a bunch of Telegram groups with friends that I've known for like 2 years from Twitter now, and they're talking about Uniswap. I'm like, oh, what is this? So I make a new MetaMask wallet, send 2 ETH from my DCA stack into it, and just start gambling on Uniswap tokens. The first token I ever bought on Uniswap was Aleph, and it like 6x'd in 2 weeks. Wow. I sold it and just started buying 0.1 to like 0.5 ETH of just absolute garbage. I had no idea what it was. There's like a Tendies token I did well on. There was XAMP or Anti-Ample by this guy named Bill Drummond.
To track this though, like what is the ambition at this moment?
To make money.
Right?
I'm somebody.
Purely.
I'm working a government job in a low IT tier. I have I went to college for computer science and engineering, and after the first year, I almost failed out. I lost all my financial aid. I switched my major to communication technology, just kind of like a bullshit degree, but it was enough to get me a degree that had technology in it, to get me a starting help desk job at a government agency, and then I was able to work myself up from there. And I worked at that agency for like 4 years. So while I was doing that, I was probably only doing 3 hours of work a day, and I was in the IT office, and we're on our own VLAN, which doesn't have any of the filters that the rest of the employees have. So I'm on Binance. I'm on. Maybe I shouldn't be saying it. Whatever. Doing all this stuff at
You're
work.
on some sites.
I'm on Discord all day. I'm just immersing myself in the crypto space, and I'm telling all my coworkers about it. They're getting fucking annoyed. They put in money. It went down. They hated me. And then when I left the job in 2021, cool. I'm sure they hated me too because they didn't keep buying or listen to me. Anyway, all this being said, I did well Uniswap Summer 2020, and my friend Trill was buying a zombie punk for like 15 grand. It was around the time when Snowfro was selling some of his punks to fund Artblocks. It's like September, October 2020. And I told Trill, I'm like, I can't buy a zombie. Risk management's so important. And if a zombie is 25 or 50% of my net worth right now, like that's just out of the question. But I'll buy a floor punk for $1,200 and see how it goes. So I bought a floor punk, kind of looked like Johnny Bravo. And then I flipped it within a week or two, and a light bulb went off in my head like, oh, holy shit, this is like, I used to play a game called Old School RuneScape. That was one of the games I was playing when I was playing games for 8 to 16 hours a day. In that game, I used to market make high-end items that were very illiquid. And they were essentially useless items that people only bought to flex. So it just, when I looked at punks, I was like, holy shit, like this is the same thing.
What do those look like? What do those items look like?
So there's two versions of RuneScape. There's RuneScape and Old School RuneScape. In RuneScape, the version is called a party hat, and the party hats came out in December 2001, and they were free for anybody to claim. You'd get a Christmas cracker, and you use it on a friend. And if you use it on somebody, there's like a chance you get it or a chance they get it. But it was just like a fun thing. And by the mid 2000s, when I'm a teenager, these party hats are worth thousands of real dollars or like hundreds of millions of RuneScape gold. So I had this like mental model of, oh, here is something that came out at one time, a long time ago for free that has no utility other than people who are wealthy in the game want to show off that they've made so much money. So they buy this item. And in Old School RuneScape, it's slightly different. Because that game got released in 2013 off of a snapshot of the game they took in 2007. And they redeveloped it with more of the old school state of mind. But the party hats were like a known thing. When they came out in Old School RuneScape, everybody knew that the party hats would be worth a lot, or maybe they would be worth a lot. So everybody hoarded them. And like right now, they're worth nothing. Like they're not even worth 5 cents. But there's other items in that game called like, I was a third age pickaxe. It was my item. But it was basically people would do what's called a treasure trail. It's like kind of a treasure hunt. Think of it like a lottery ticket. And you have like a 1 in 5,000 chance to get any third age item. And then there's like dozens of third age items. So like you have like a 1 in 32 or 1 in 50,000 chance of getting this pickaxe. And the only reason to use the pickaxe is because it looks different than the other ones and is a flex. So I would be
that's like a plot point in Mythic Quest, I think.
What?
I think that's a plot point in Mythic Quest in the TV show.
Oh, maybe. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah. But anyway,
I'm trying to market make these third age pickaxes, and I would. So in RuneScape, there's no open order book. Like when you're trading on OpenSea or the Punks website, you can see all the bids and the asks. On RuneScape, you're just kind of guessing. And there's some sites that have some data depending on the clients that the people are using, but then some of the clients didn't feed that data. So there was never like a complete data set. So I was just trying to buy them for around 10% under market. But really, I was trying to have the highest bid and the lowest ask at the same time with like a 10% spread to the down and the upside, because the people who would buy these items were people who made a ton of money from either killing a rare boss and getting a really rare piece of loot that they sold and then wanted the flex, or in RuneScape, there's something called the Duel Arena or the Sand Casino, and you could go for basically 50-50 other people with no rake and just bet. So like somebody might make $1 billion at the sand casino and they want to flex, they made $1 billion. So they would pay a 10% premium to get the third age pickaxe immediately because they don't care, because they just made a ton of money. And I would just try to capture those spreads. So when I got into punks, I took the same mindset and tried to apply it of, you know, if I can buy this for 10 to 20% under the market and it's aesthetic and it looks good, then I can sell it for 10 to 20% over the market. And I think I flipped like 80 or 85 punks. But a lot of it was just that same mindset of like, is this something that will maybe get a whale to pay a premium for because it looks good? And that was my mental model. And, you know, you're in the punks Discord and Snowfro's like, hey, I'm doing this Artblocks thing. Feel free to check it out or not. But like, I just sold a bunch of zombies to fund it. And I taught myself how to code during the pandemic. And Snowfro's just the nicest fucking dude ever. Like, he was the guy in the Discord answering all of your dumb questions and just being the best vibes, like with a smile on his face, because he genuinely loves the space, the tech, specifically loved punks at the time. I'm sure he still does.
He does.
But it was a no-brainer to just like go over to Artblocks and see what's going on. And these squiggles were like 0.035. I think I minted 50 of them over the course of like 2 months, because what I would do is I'd mint like 1 or 2 a day. I'd do slow gas and I would like queue up a video game, and randomly you get the MetaMask ding of like, oh, my transaction went through on Logue Way. Like, let me go check it out. And then you might do another one, or you might wait till tomorrow. And I just thought squiggles would be available for a long time. So did he. And it was one of those things where I just got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. So going from punks to squiggles and early art blocks, started taking some of those profits and connecting with some of the artists in the space. And the next thing you know, I'm just collecting 101s after talking to artists, and things blew up. And I was taking like 10. I took too much of my profit and bought 101s, but I think I took like 20% of the money I made before taxes, not even after taxes. And was just like buying art. And yeah, that's kind of how I amassed my whole collection. It was just, I got lucky on Uniswap and then started trading punks and then bought early art blocks and then got lucky and started turning that into 101 art. Sorry, that was 20 minutes. It's about 4:18. So I said I wasn't going to try to make that 20 minutes long, but it was.
It
was great.
No, it's a really good story. I think what I'm interested in, if we can, is sort of like, can you break down like how Deeze evaluates an idea or a piece of art? Like, when do you know that it's resonating with you? When do you know that it's good? When do you know to commit to something that, like, you know, might not make sense to a lot of other people at the time?
Yeah, I think that's evolved a lot since I first started buying, specifically 101s. I guess it changes depending on the type of NFT or the type of art. I'm much more someone who's looking at the PFP side from a trading perspective. And then I'm looking at the generative side. It's kind of like a mix. I'm looking at the generative side from a mix of collecting and trading. And then I'm looking at the 101 side just from the collecting perspective. So it kind of depends on what I'm buying. But for collecting, it is a mixture of, you know, first off, when I look at the art, does it make me feel something? I think as I've started to collect more and more, I've realized that I need a strong feeling pretty early on to even get the urge to like move forward and connect with the artist if I don't know them already. But if I do know the artist very well and I get a very strong feeling from the piece, then that's when I buy it. But it's kind of a combination of like, do I think this artist is going to create regardless of market conditions? Do I think this artist has their head in the right places and the right values to succeed in this space? And like, do I like them as a person? I've got to the point where even if I really like the art, if I don't like the artist as a person, I won't buy it, or I will buy it with 100% intention to flip it or sell it later on. And that has kind of evolved. I think in the beginning, I was getting so lucky with the rate of appreciation on so much stuff that I would talk to an artist for like 10 minutes on Twitter Space. I was like buying their art. And when I looked back after a year of collecting without a strict, framework, I really regretted like 50 to 75% of my purchases. um, some of those artists are long gone or have went on to dilute the living shit out of their supplies or, whatnot. And yeah, so I've been a lot more strict recently, or like the last year, about collecting, but it makes me feel that much better when I do find something that checks all the boxes, because I can just automatically buy it and not think twice.
Very rare.
But yeah, that's kind of how I look at it now.
This may come off as a very basic question, but I'm asking again because the artists that I've spoken to, over the course of making the film, you've come up in conversation, and again, it's very consistent in terms of how they feel about you, and it's always positive. And I told this to Jason even before we started. I literally think you and Art Gnome, like you are the two people that we can say sort of through and through. People are like, yeah, fuck, I'm down with them, and that's just super rare.
That's a mind fuck to me, because like when I entered the space, I was reading Jason's articles, is like getting a basis. Like I think of the classic article with the Homer Simpson Pepe of like, what is crypto art? And that's kind of where I send people first. If they ever ask me like, what the fuck's going on here? What is this? I think that article is so important, and it was written so early. It just was so prescient in a way. But yeah, the fact that you just compared me to Art Gnome is crazy. I'm blushing. Well, and I mean,
maybe maybe he has answers to this too. But I imagine a lot of collectors don't know how to speak to artists. And I'm asking you specifically because of the relationship that you've been able to establish with them. How do you talk to artists? How do you approach them when you're talking about, you mentioned like they're diluting their supply or stuff like that. Like,
I never give advice to artists, really. Like when artists ask me for feedback, I never like to impede my view of the market, supply, or anything. I just want them to come to whatever feels right in their gut, basically. Like if they think it should be 100 editions, like it should be 100 editions. If they think it should be 10, it should be 10. Like I never want to tell them what to do or not to do. I think when I was talking about supply earlier, specifically the open edition meta is what killed it for me. A lot of, I think people were a little short-sighted in the open edition meta of maybe I have a limited hype window to capitalize on, and now a lot of their demand is satiated in one drop because it was a big open edition.
We're here for the party.
I mean, to include it in like the question as a way of sort of generally speaking as to like how you approach people who make art, and what sort of conversations like you found are successful in supporting them to do what they do best.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm just super inquisitive or curious. So a lot of my connections came from me hosting Twitter Spaces, and then anyone who requests, I just bring them up, and I would just not drill them with questions, but just, I'm honestly just very curious in their process, the behind the scenes, what they're thinking about when they create a piece, what it means to them. And I would just ask them anything off the top of my head, and people were really like artists who really care about what they're making, like they love conversations like that. They love to dissect the little decisions that went into making the piece, the inspirations behind it. They love that shit. So when you talk to them about it and you show a genuine curiosity, they just open up and talk all the time. So for me, it's just like I treat them how I want to be treated, and I'm super curious. I'm not somebody who's super proactive, honestly. Like if you ask a lot of artists, like I probably didn't DM them first or like slide in trying to get a deal or anything. It was mostly like I probably followed them, might have replied to a tweet or two, talked to them on a space, and then it kind of evolved into an organic friendship where maybe I got their phone number and I text them or call them, or they'll FaceTime me when they're doing something to show it off. And it's just like it was very unplanned or unstructured. I was just curious and treated them how I wanted to be treated. And I showed them that, I really cared about what they made. I didn't just care about their name and the price that they've sold things before and the price that they might be able to sell things in the future. I was just, I don't know, just a good person. I don't know. treat people how you want to be treated. Like look at any artist as a money machine or a vending machine, or like I'm never trying to get free things or favors. Like I think a lot of artists came in the space and they sold things to people, and then those people expect things from them. Like I expect nothing after I buy the piece from them. Like I really enjoy the piece. I really enjoy them. I really enjoy putting money in their pocket for them to continue creating what they want to create, so they don't have to go take commissions or work another job, and like let them create what they want to create. Like I'm not trying to get involved in the process and all that stuff.
Bailey, I feel like you have experience speaking with artists too. And again, I feel like it's such a basic thing to sort of return to, but I feel like there is kind of this maybe lack of consciousness when we talk about just like the relationship between collectors and artists, and sort of like what a healthy one looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I so first off, I think Deeze probably has like the highest EQ in the entire community, right? And that's why his relationships with artists and everybody go well. You know, so like simple things, like most people really want their chance to talk, but don't really listen too well, right? And I think that's kind of what Deeze is hitting on. Like authentically, sincerely listening to an artist because you're genuinely interested. Like, you know, if I'm not interested in an artist, I'm not going to seek out a conversation with them, like, which shouldn't be that surprising. And if they seek out one with me, I try to sort of politely move to the side of it. But if I'm genuinely interested, it's like borderline like hero worship for me, right? Like I love art, and if someone's making something that blows my mind, I think it's probably flattering and exciting to them to hear someone who's like just genuinely super excited to hear about their process and what they're doing and what their background is. And you know, it costs nothing to give genuine and sincere compliments. I think sometimes people feel like making someone else feel good or giving a compliment somehow diminishes their supply of something, like on a video game, like your life support goes down. But like it costs nothing and it makes other people feel really good, right? And I think sort of sincerely engaging with other people, you know, is the way to go with artists. And the other thing that I think Deeze hit on, that people can sense if this is like the beginning of you trying to get a bunch of stuff from them. You know what I mean? Like, so if they're an artist is talking to you and they can kind of see through into your brain, and it's like, is this person trying to get this work so that like they can be famous themselves or make money down the road, or because they expect me to like, you know, have you quote unquote utility? I think there's like an antenna there, you know, and I don't think either of us do. Sort of famously, when I'm getting into a partner or sort of a relationship or a friendship with an artist, I'm trying to pay more forward and intentionally not thinking about what's going to happen later. Like I'm not trying to make an even deal. I'm just like, I'm getting this because I love this work and I want to support you. And it's more important to me that the money is going to the artist than that the thing I bought ever has value or whatever. So yeah, that's a little bit of a ramble, but I think, you know, lots to learn from Deeze in terms of EQ. And then the other thing that I love about Deeze is I get lots and lots, maybe the question I get more than ever, like any other question about this space, particularly from like art world people, are like, these aren't our real art collectors, right? These are just people that are here to like flip, that are just like, you know, they treat these things like tokens or coins or whatever. Like these aren't. And I always say like, well, yeah, sure. A lot of people come in like that. And maybe a lot of the people in 2021 that started coming in and collecting heavily kind of had that pedigree or background. But so many of them become like sincere, genuine art collectors and champions of artists. And that's freaking amazing, right? Like the art world and the world of art collectors is going to stay super small if we're like, oh, only if you grew up like getting an art history degree or with like a family with a shitload of money that collected art, and that's where art collectors are going to come from. That's so myopic, right? And I think like Deeze to me is like a super great example maybe of someone that kind of was like buying and selling tokens, and it became like a gateway into collecting art in a super like sincere way that I think is really good for artists.
Yeah, I think that was well put. I never had the intention to collect art when I joined the crypto space, right? Like it was very much, I'm working a job that I can model out the next 30 years. And if I don't kill myself at 62, I can retire. And that's my life. And when you're staring down the barrel of a loaded gun like that, you need to look for ways out. And when you're young, you're able to take risks, and took a bunch of financial risks that paid off in the end. And now I have, you know, I don't have too much money, but I am very comfortable. And then I'm like, okay, like I could collect art. Like, you know, my mom's a hairdresser. My dad's a maintenance man. I got the max grants I could get to college because my family is so poor on paper. And no one in my family collects art outside of like maybe buying something at a flea market or a TJ Maxx or Marshall's. And it was nothing, I didn't grow up loving art or going to museums. I grew up in Northeast Ohio. Our museum is like the Butler Institute of Art. It's not bad, but I mean, it's not the MoMA, and you're not really immersed in that culture. But once I started talking to artists on Twitter Spaces and hearing their passion for what they were doing, I just started realizing how much more was there. Like I never had exposure to being able to communicate directly with artists like that at any point in time. And yeah, it just got to the point where like I bought a couple calf samards. They're framed in my house, and then
she's awesome.
People are coming over and they're asking about it, and I'm telling them the whole story behind the piece, how she makes these composites, where she took each photo. And then like the next thing you know, my friends are buying her prints and putting them in their house. And it's like nobody is asking about the black and white forest I got from IKEA and what artist that was. Like that was in my first apartment. It was a $40 really, landscape canvas that went above our couch. But being able to have those stories about what went into the art just feels so much better in person when you're connecting with your friends about it. Especially like our house right now is a good mix of like landscape photography and then like psychedelic killer acid, pop wonder, whatever crazy shit. So there's something there for everybody in some way or form. And it's just really fun to like, I have all these artists' phone numbers. I can call them, text them, and to share that with my friends in real life who don't collect art, and to get them to appreciate what I've come to appreciate. Like that feels so fulfilling. And I never thought that would happen, but it just did. And it felt good. Like the vibe was right. So I just kept doing it.
What do you think the sort of, I was checking out your collection before we hopped on and noticed what you just described. Sort of, there's a lot of landscape photography, and then there's very clearly a second side that's sort of psychedelia and illustration based. And at first I was like, well, these are just two totally different sides of Deeze as a collector or whatever. But then I was like, well, maybe I'm starting to see like overlap, but visually they're different. But like, do you think there's similar impulses that cause you to collect, from those two different camps, or is it sort of fulfilling two different sides of you?
It might be fulfilling two different sides of me. I feel like when I really connected with Kath early on, and then more of the landscape photographers, I was really connecting with the adventure and the journey. Some things Kath has done, she'll take a helicopter into like a remote area with some friends and be dropped off for like a week, and then just go hike around all these remote locations she scouted on Google Earth. That's never something I would do. I spend 12 hours a day looking at a screen. So like being able to feel like I'm there and be a part of that journey, and I get to see the proof of work in a sense when you're talking to them and hearing about it. The psychedelic stuff is more, I feel like, visually stimulating, and talking to those artists is always a trip, because I'm always asking about like Killer Acid's a great one. You ask him about his psychedelic use and he'll start talking about like a mushroom trip he had in high school where he couldn't tell anyone in his family that he was on mushrooms. So he's just like in his room losing his fucking mind, and stuff like that. And like you connect on that level, because I wasn't in high school when I had my first psychedelic experience. I had my wife near me. And it was different, but I could still see some of the similarities. And obviously in the art itself, it kind of speaks to those psychedelic journeys. And then there's a bunch of pop culture references and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, maybe they're not as overlapping, but definitely get different things out of them. But I try to like, a lot of the colors in our houses they're cool. It's like blues, greens. I don't collect a lot of reds. You're not going to see a lot of reds, yellows, and oranges. You're going to see a lot of blues, greens, purples. It's kind of the general vibe I have. It kind of keeps the house like some type of theme, rather than just a bunch of crazy stuff. Because my wife is also a little OCD, and like if I am just trying to throw up everything and it's like a rainbow room, it's probably not the vibe. She's probably a little overwhelmed. So yeah, it was just
You wanted to
it seems like there is. Maybe it was a stretch, but the journey thing is sort of what connected it for me. I was like, no, there's both like in Kath's like landscape works. There's sort of this like journey going somewhere else, and then more of a psychological or psychedelic journey on the other side. Maybe that's surfacey and obvious, but I was looking because I'm like, even your rare Pepes. I'm like, well, those are Deeze style. Like you have a Deeze aesthetic, right? So like, there's something between like your Kath photography, landscape photography, your Pepes, and your Killer Acid type work that still feel fundamentally Deeze across like all of them.
Deezian.
But I can't put it's Deezian, but I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my rare Pepes, like I'm going through, I don't know how many I have, like 45 maybe. A lot of them are fake rares, actually. They're not real rare Pepes, but they're from a lot of the artists I already loved. Like Zaid Kersey has a sick one, Killer Acid, Pop Wonder, Christy Glass, Rick Ostenbrook, Jake Freed, Joe Peace. Like the Joe Peace package claims. I'll never be able to afford one of his one-on-ones, but man, like package claims basically as close as I can get. But yeah, I mean, it's just collecting a lot from the people I like too. Like these are artists I liked on ETH and I already knew and developed a good relationship. So when they made a fake rare, it was like, I need to get on that list. But yeah, I do see the overlap.
Can you tell us a bit, because again, like going to your profile and everything, like clicking through that link tree, I was like, oh, whoa, he has a dabbing guide, and he like it sounds like there are quite a few projects going on, in the land of Deeze. Can you just give us like an overview of like sort of what you're working on now, where your head is at?
Yeah,
what some of those projects might be.
The dabbing guide came from I was posting a GM picture every day, and the GM picture was me taking a dab, and honestly, like I was just too high for the bull run. Like I made poor decisions. I was too high because I was playing into this persona that I'm like, oh, I'm this degenerate stoner who needs to smoke weed at 10 a.m. so I can post this picture of me smoking weed at 10 a.m. And I'm actually on day 5. I'm doing a sober June where I don't do any drugs. So I'm on like day 5 of no weed right now and feeling good. But
so please enjoy.
I had to put a dabbing guide out because every time I'd post a picture, people were just like, what is this? Like, is this crack? Is this meth? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, all right, like, let me at least specify what's going on here. Sadly, the company I used to work for, where I was the director of Vibes, Tessera, just made the difficult decision to dissolve in the bear market and return a very healthy portion of the funds to investors rather than to pivot a few more times in the bear and hope that we make it to the next bull. So right now I have the most free time I've had since I graduated high school. Working on the We Do a Little pod. I have some art claims that are going to go live later this week. Each episode has a specific claim for it, and the holders of our NFTs are able to claim those. And I'm going to be leaning into trying to get more sponsorships for the pod, trying to make it more of a sustainable revenue generating thing. Like when it was a part of Tessera, it was very simple. It was like, they're going to incubate it. If something ever happens to Tessera, I will get ownership of the pod. But while it was incubated, like I didn't get any of the funds that we made from mints or anything like that. All went to the company. So now it's to the point where it's like, okay, it's setting up an LLC and breaking up revenue splits and trying to figure out, how do we, at the bare minimum, make this break even? And then from there, how do we make it profitable? And that's what I'll be spending most of my summer on. And I'm honestly very lucky that I'm in a position to just like not need to jump into another job and can take my time here, because I'm somebody who, once I commit to something, I commit to it for a while. Like I see a bunch of people in the space and they're on a new project or team every 3 to 6 months. And I have very little faith in anything they do, because I just think they're a serial entrepreneur who's going to jump to a new shiny thing before they see the fruits of their labor. I think a lot of stuff requires 2, 3, 4, 5+ years of continual grinding and 1% improvements to actually see results. And if you're jumping to something when you're bored or when you just want to jump ship, like I don't want to be looked at as that guy. So I was with Tessera for almost 2 years. I joined them in July 2021. And we dissolved the first or second week of May. So I was almost there for 2 years. And the next thing I commit to, I want to make sure that like I can commit to that for 2 to 4 years and feel very confident in it before signing the contract. I've had a few people reach out to me about opportunities, and they're great, but I don't look at them from like the, oh, I think I can do this for 2 to 4 year mark, where like I know I could do the podcast for the rest of my life. I love talking to people. I'm very curious. I love asking them questions, and I love sharing it with my friends. So it's a no-brainer for me to just kind of focus on the pod and see what we can make happen.
I love that. Anything that you're looking at in terms of like collecting these days?
Yeah, I mean, this is a few things. Recently got a little caught up in the Chex ecosystem. I've been friends with Jack for a while, and for some reason, just like faded things way too much because I didn't understand it and I wasn't curious enough. And then like in mid-April, he came on one of the Twitter spaces we do. And after that, it was like, oh, I got to ask him all the questions I had and I understand everything. And I'm an idiot for not having any of these. So been a little bit more involved in his ecosystem. Very curious as to what's going to be happening with the the auctions with Sotheby's, whether it's like the punks, the art blocks, they have the 3AC liquidations. Kind of watching that with a close eye. That is something where I'll be watching it more from a trading perspective. I think my generative art bags are pretty packed and heavy, and I would be looking for maybe an opportunity to catch momentum. And then on the one-on-one side, I'm collecting a lot in groups. I'm a member of the Met Fund, which is like 15 or 16 people. I'm a member of Megazord, which is just me, NorCal Guy, and then the entity Guppy, which is made of Redbeard, Will Savis, and Zanzibar. And I'm in Neon DAO, which is, more people than the Met Fund and Megazord combined. And then I have like 2 other Gnosis multi-sigs with friends where we co-collect things and like have fucking spreadsheets breaking out who owns what, and it's a whole mess. But a lot of the one-on-one art I've been collecting these days is co-collected. The cash flow from 2021 just set delusional expectations for all market participants. And I don't really have the cash flow now to justify buying nearly as many one-on-ones. But I am trying to collect the one-on-ones as a group because I do think there are really good opportunities right now because there aren't that many bidders and collectors. So I'm, following all the artists I already collect from, looking for deals if I see one, but nothing I'm, hunting in particular.
Brilliant.
Deeze, I have to ask. Oh, we're going into the next segment, but I'm going to ask anyway. How do I know if I'm a degen? Like, I think I might be, but
if you resonate with it, then you probably are. You probably know if you're a degen if you're willing to just take chunks of your portfolio and throw it into something that feels good in your gut, even though you don't have a quantifiable thesis or edge, but you just think or know deep down that you want to gamble on something or somebody. That's what I would say. Like, you just have that gut feeling.
That confirms it.
And you're like, I don't know why I'm spending $110,000 on this Sam Spratt skull, but like every time I talk to Sam Spratt in person, I love him and I want to be a part of this group. So fuck it. I'm going to sell a ringer and a Fidenza and take the profit post-tax to buy one of these skulls. Like that's like in my head a degen move. Not something super quantifiable, but the vibe always feels right when I'm around Sam. I've spent hours with him in real life talking about everything under the sun, and I couldn't be happier to spend that much on anything else. So yeah, that's
there's some cool cryptic mystery around that project too that I love. The Skulls of Lucy.
Sam is just such a deep and thoughtful thinker, and his mind is unlike any artist I've really met. I think he's so thoughtful, and the way that he acts is very, I don't want to say like calculated because that's probably not the right word, but it just, everything he does is like, wow, you thought about this like 100% deeper than I thought you did. Like if you ask him about his Christie's auction with for maps and the reason that he chose to go through the auction house, and you listen to like the third order effects that he's rattling off and you're like, wow, like, okay, you weren't just like, oh, it's Christie's, they're big and Maps is a charity, that's good, let's do it. It's like, no, like you have a whole deep, thoughtful understanding of every gear in the system and how each one turns and how that impacts not only how your artwork is perceived and who buys it, but also how it impacts your existing community and everything else. And sorry, just rambling about how much I love Samuel stuff.
No, I love that. I love hearing you talk about artists, man. It's really special.
There's so many artists I love. Like, artists are just good people. Like, I'm so used to being around people who only care about money, and there's definitely artists who only care about money, but you can sniff them out pretty quickly. Or I can now at this point. Maybe I couldn't in 2021, but I've learned. But I just come from a world where like everyone cares about trying to make the most money possible. And once you get to a certain point, the utility and the money just drops off. Like, I have a house I never dreamed I could afford. I just bought a new car. Like, I have, other than retiring my parents and my grandparents, I have everything in life that I could really want right now. And, you know, making more money isn't the top of my goals. So I don't want to spend time around people who their only goal is making the most amount of money possible. I do want to spend some time around them because they have very valuable insights, because that's all they think about. And then I'm able to take 80% of what they think about and apply it to my life and get good results. But I'm not the one who like is going to bed and waking up thinking about interest rates and charts and all that different stuff. I'm just kind of, it's not as exciting to me as connecting with people. And I think I've always been that way when I look back. Like, I like talking to people. I like socializing. I like connecting people together. Like, oh man, like you'd really like this artist. Like, I love when I'm in person at an event and I get to introduce a big anonymous collector who I'm really close with to artists I love who they've never met in real life. And then like 80% of the time they go home and they buy a piece from the artist I introduced them to. And that feels more fulfilling than me like selling art that I bought from that artist for a 10x. Like, I'd much rather see another collector who knows what they're doing vibe with the same vibe I do, and then the social proof of them purchasing it and supporting them. Like, that feels so much better. And yeah.
With that, we're going to head into 22 questions. But first, a pre-roll.
Hey gang, it's Art Gnome. Let's keep it real. Some people just bought NFTs just like they might have bought a fidget spinner or a pet rock. It's not something they take very seriously. But if you're a serious collector like I am, you know there are a lot of tools that are just missing in the space. I spent the last 2 years trying to build tools for serious NFT collectors like me. With a Club NFT subscription, you can find out how much your collection is worth, analyze potential risks, create a local backup, and pin all your IPFS NFTs. That sounds kind of nerdy, but it's pretty important. Don't worry if you don't know what it means, we can help you out. You can also discover new artists based on your past collecting habits. Join thousands of other collectors who took the jump to managing their collection with Club NFT, and don't forget to let me know what you think, because I'd love to hear from you. If you're ready to get serious about collecting, why not try Club NFT? You'll be glad you did.
Sequence activation in 60 seconds.
This is art. My art. So what the hell is art to you?
The art business is very volatile.
All right. Now for everybody's favorite segment on the Dankness. 22 random questions. This is the segment where we ask intentionally random questions to our guests to help you learn new and interesting things about them. Very often our guests have been interviewed by many other people and get a lot of the same questions over and over again, which is not fun for them to answer over and over again and not fun for you to hear over and over again. So we have intentionally picked some strange ass questions to get at other aspects of our guests that maybe you don't know about yet. And we are going to start off with Dan on question number 1 for Deeze.
Tough question, Deeze. What did you eat for breakfast?
So every day for breakfast, I eat 3 to 4 scrambled eggs.
Nice. We need eggs.
Break as many eggs as you like.
Always eggs. That's a crypto
Always
thing.
Eggs. Everyone we have interviewed eats eggs for breakfast.
So for a while,
Crypto
I was
runs on
intermittent
eggs.
fasting and not eating breakfast. And I think beginning of April, I got the 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss and was taking some learnings from that and applying it to my own life. And I realized maybe intermittent fasting wasn't the best thing for me. So I've just been on this steady 3 to 4 eggs every morning and then cutting out some carbs. And I'm the lowest weight I've been since college. So I feel pretty good.
Wow.
But yeah,
Dude, I need you to drop the handbook like yesterday.
The 4-Hour Body by it's been out since like 2011. Like this book is.
I just mean the Deeze handbook, like okay, cool. Like in June we're gonna do like sober June. We're gonna like lose weight.
It's a bear market, right?
You know,
so like
simplify.
You can build financial wealth in a bull market, and you can start planting the seeds for financial wealth in a bear market for the next bull market. But like, you can work on health in any market, and health is wealth. Like there's people who they always say they're like millionaires and billionaires with shitty health. And they're like, I would give up every dollar to be healthy and not sick again. And it's like, all right, like, let me kind of learn from their mistakes. Like I'm around the age of 30. I got a long life ahead of me. Like, let me start giving a shit now because I haven't gave a shit for 30 years. And now I'm at a point where the financial stuff is basically covered. And I have more time to focus on other stuff that is maybe even more important than that. So yeah, that's where I'm at with Sober June and, you know, reading the 4-Hour Body. And it's small stuff. It's like very small changes. It's not I'm in the gym 5 hours or I'm in the gym 1 hour a day, 5 days a week. It's like I'm doing 20 minutes of exercises 2 to 3 days a week. I'm walking 3 to 5 miles a day while I host Twitter spaces or draft fantasy football lineups, and I'm eating healthier. But I'm seeing really nice results off a very small amount of tweaks.
Amen to that. Yeah. No, I think you were talking earlier about what money can and can't buy or what to do once you have money. And I think health is the way to go for sure. So amen to that. But the real question is, what does your bed look like right now?
It's half made. So if you just imagine the comforter being like rolled down halfway and then I got out of bed, it looks like that.
So you can like slide back in.
Yep, and then just pull the comforter right back over. Mrs. Deeze normally will make the bed before she gets into it at night, and then I join after, so it's already made. So God bless Mrs. Deeze.
God bless Mrs. Deeze.
God bless.
When was the last vacation that you took?
That's a good question. Not related to an NFT event. I don't know. 2021 summer, I went and visited Ice Bags the last week of August, and it was both the best and the worst trip of my life because it's the best trip of my life because I got a lot of good advice and some wisdom, and we had a beautiful time on beaches and boats. But it was the worst trip of my life because while I was in the Uber to the airport, it was like 6:30 a.m. I remember it like it was yesterday. I got the alert that Visa bought a CryptoPunk, and I just knew like there's a part of me who wanted the Uber to turn around and I wanted to go home because I knew in my gut, it was like a degen move. I'm like, I have 200, 300 liquid ETH right now. I should just be buying the 4 punks. Like they were like 50 ETH. And then by the end of the week, when I got back home, because I never travel with my private keys, right? Like I'm always super paranoid about security. I'll keep like 5 ETH on my phone just in case something happens, but I don't want a big amount on me. And that was the one moment where I've never seen a more obvious degenerate buy signal than to like shove all my chips in, but I committed to this trip. So I'm not gonna not commit to it. But yeah, I think we'll be going on vacation here at the end of July. And that'll be maybe my first one. I guess other vacations just include like going to visit the in-laws across the country, but I don't know if that's as much as a vacation. Like me and Mrs. Deeze haven't really just taken a vacation by ourselves to relax. It's always like after an NFT event in Miami, we might stay there for an extra couple days to hang out and vibe, but it's not like we plan to go there specifically for vacation.
For sure.
Right on. So, how old were you, Deeze, when you received your first computer?
So I remember we had a computer in the house like by 1998 or so, which I would have been like 5 or 6. But I didn't get my first computer until I was 9 in like 2002. My mom basically handed me down her old computer, and then I had that same computer until 2012. Um, we never upgraded, so.
Do you remember what kind of computer it
It was
was?
just like a cheap Dell that you could have bought from Best Buy. Just like a standard Dell tower. It didn't even have a graphics card. Like I couldn't play World of Warcraft or League of Legends or StarCraft or anything. That's why I played RuneScape, because RuneScape worked in a browser. It just ran off Java. So it was like kind of, I was constrained to mini clip and addicting games or RuneScape. And obviously I was going to choose RuneScape because it was the one where I could log in and make friends and train a character for hours and hours and hours of time.
Get a pickaxe.
Oh yeah, pickaxes.
That's
why I started.
Third age pickaxe, is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, there weren't third age pickaxes when I started playing. It was like I did the most inefficient shit. I was like in 5th grade, maybe even a little younger, and I would just take the most inefficient routes. Like it was very like I was Lindy walking through the game. There was no plan. I was just like, I'm gonna walk to the other town and like follow someone around, and then I'm gonna sell all my shit to the general store and put that little bit of gold in the bank, and then maybe do it again. And it was just like I was just enjoying being a third, like I don't know, enjoyed being a character in an open world where I could just do whatever I wanted, but I had like no plan or there was no trading back then, or if I was trading, I was more doing the gambling stuff and losing it. Like I've always been a gambler. My family, especially on my mom's side, they're just degenerate gamblers. It's like they're trying to solve the lottery. Like they're watching YouTube videos on numerology to solve the lottery. They're going to the casino every weekend and throwing rent payments on black or red. They're starting businesses without modeling anything and then declaring bankruptcy. Like I learned a lot of what not to do when it comes to risk management through them, but then I also made the same mistakes myself and had to learn it again. But yeah, that's kind of a tangent there.
No, that's great. That's why we have these questions.
Who's your favorite writer, author, or speaker, generally or of the moment?
Probably Walter Isaacson. His biographies on like Ben Franklin and Da Vinci and Steve Jobs, I think have had a pretty big impact on me. I think when you get to look at some of the most successful people of all time and study their habits and mindsets and their life, you get to see, nobody is ever perfect. And a lot of times when we look at people, we only look at their strengths, or we put their strengths on a pedestal without properly evaluating their weaknesses. And I think those books kind of taught me that, like, and this goes back to video games too, like every person is kind of born with a certain amount of attribute points. Like, let's just say you have 100 attribute points. And if like 90 of your attribute points are in intelligent, like you're probably lacking really hard in other areas. There's nobody who just has 100 points in everything. Like that in human history hasn't been a thing. So I think reading those books and getting a realistic take on some of the people who are looked up as like gods or goats or the best at what they did is just really impactful. And then I guess for speaker, going off of Walter Isaacson, there's this podcast I really like called Founders, and the guy's name is David Senra, but he basically reads biographies and then does a podcast on the biography he read. So it's like a 1 to 2 hour audio version of his notes of a biography he read. So I guess I'm just really into learning about people who came before us, things they did that made them successful, some of their weaknesses. And it's just interesting to learn about and maybe apply to my own life.
Yeah, I like your allotment of points. Like people that appear to be perfect or just overly confident scare the shit out of me because God. I know there's a counterbalance, right? There's a counterbalance there, right? So yeah, and if you don't know what that counterbalance is, what the flaws are, then you have to wonder if and when it'll crop up. So important question: air hockey or foosball?
Probably air hockey.
Yeah, air hockey over foosball, and then mini golf or ping pong / table tennis.
Mini
depending
golf.
on how you. Yeah, mini golf. Any reason on mini golf over ping pong?
Mini golf, I'm against myself, and
Yeah.
ping pong, I'm against somebody else. And I like the fact that with mini golf, it's like I am against other people in the sense that I'm trying to get a lower score, but I'm not like volleying every 2 seconds with them or every second. It's much more of like a mental game. And I also just think like being outside for mini golf is really fun, especially when you have some of those like windmill looking things where you got to like time a moving object and hit it in a hole. And then you're kind of relying on the randomness of like the ball being shit out a tube and bouncing around. Like, I like that more. I just get my ass kicked in table tennis. I'm not a very athletic person, so I'm a very competitive person, but I'm not athletic. So it creates an interesting dynamic where I have this dissonance of like, I'm just getting my ass kicked, but I'm competitive, but I'm not getting. So I have always been more of like a mini golfer over a table tenniser.
Deeze, what's your favorite animated series as a child?
Probably Dexter's Lab.
No one's mentioned Dexter. Dexter's the best.
It's true.
Gendy, I'm gonna botch his last name. Tarkovsky, or the guy who made Dexter's Lab, who also made Powerpuff Girls, who also made Samurai Jack, who also made the show Primal on HBO.
Primal is fantastic.
So they don't even fucking talk, and it's one of the most like engaging, thrilling animated series ever. That dude is just a genius.
Stunning, yeah.
I love everything he did. At the time as a kid, I didn't catch like 50% of what was going on in the dialogue, but then going back and listening to it like 5-10 years ago and rewatching Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack was like, wow, there was like a lot more deeper stuff here to unpack. And I just have a really big bias for the Cartoon Network ecosystem.
Love it. I'm gonna jump around here on the stand because I want to make sure we get this one in because it's one of my favorites, and I feel like we're gonna get a good answer on this, Deeze. So, worst job ever
that I've had, or that I can imagine?
Yeah, worst job that you've had.
Yeah, I was a fencing assistant my freshman summer. So I mentioned that I was failing out of school and I lost all my financial aid. So we have a family friend who owns a company that builds agricultural and equine fences in Western Pennsylvania. And I signed up to help him for $9 an hour. And I'd wake up at 5 a.m., get ready, drive to his house, pack up the trailer with these 8 to 10 foot long fencing posts, all the spools of wire, all the equipment. And then we'd go to the job site around 6:37 whenever we were packed up. Would just all day manual labor, dropping posts or ripping out old posts if we had to dismantle the old fence, doing all that shit. And then we'd get back to his place at like 5:30. I would leave after we unpacked the car at 6, and then I'd get home at like 6:37, and I'd be so dead that like I'd eat dinner and hang out for an hour or two, go to bed and do it again. But I did that for a summer, and it really taught me that I need to get my shit together when I was in school. I knew that if I had to work a physical labor job, I wasn't going to make it. It goes back to me being non-athletic. I just don't have it in me to be a physical laborer. And that job really pushed, like I was in the best shape of my life after that summer because I was out all day for like 12 hours a day working. But I was pretty miserable mentally because I just had no time to do what I wanted to do. So that was my least favorite job. Before that, I was a lot assistant on a car lot. So I would like wash cars, clean up oil spills, move cars. That wasn't too bad. Not nearly as bad as like being a fencing assistant where you're just pushing your body all day.
Yeah.
I do like the title though, because when you said you were a fencing assistant, my first thought was like,
oh yeah, like I'm a sparring partner. Like I'm just getting my ass kicked out there. I'm like I'm a test dummy.
So I was totally ready for this story about how you were like a fencing assistant, like sword
oh no, I'm
fighting.
just getting my ass kicked over and over. I'm a human punching bag. Just
yeah.
that would probably be worse. Maybe if the hours weren't as long, it wouldn't have been worse. But it was more the combination of like 12 to 14 hours of my day are burnt, and on top of that, I'm making $9 an hour, and I'm taxed on it. And it's like what's the point? Like, I don't know. Like,
for sure. Deeze, who in the world would you like to meet but haven't?
Yeah, that's a tough question. That's one of the ones I don't have an answer ready for. I'm assuming it would be somebody alive, right? Like, I can't go back and meet someone dead.
You can meet somebody dead for sure.
If I can meet someone dead, I have to say Jesus Christ. Like, that probably sounds like a really silly or cliche answer, but like, gotta meet this dude who had such a big impact on people that we, to this day, worship his sacrifices. Like, it's like a super Lindy religion that would be really interesting to go back. If maybe even if you go back to like Egyptian times and meet like, maybe not King Tut, but one of the more famous pharaohs or something would be cool.
Or Moses.
Yeah,
like,
Moses.
Fighting the pharaoh, like that moment. It's kind of.
And then like, yeah, people who are alive, it's tough. Like, I don't. probably should have a better answer for people who are alive, but I feel very fortunate that I've been able to like meet most of the people I've wanted to meet. Or, you know, they always say never meet your heroes. That's probably why I don't want to meet anyone who's alive, because I'm just going to realize they're not the person I held them up to that high pedestals to. So yeah, I don't really have an answer for who I would meet now.
Well, if Jesus, if you're listening to the podcast, you know, Deeze is a fan and interested in meeting.
I'd probably say Andy Reid.
Like to connect people.
If I had to pick a person, I feel like
Andy Reid, like the football coach,
the coach for the
football coach,
the Chiefs. That would be. I'd want him on like
Eagles,
the podcast for 2 hours, and I would just want to talk to him about his life, because I feel like he's an incredible leader who's also very humble and like principled and good vibes, and he's clearly had success with multiple organizations, multiple different groups of people, and I would just like to pick his brain on the leadership stuff and being a coach.
He's the one with the cool mustache.
Yeah, he's like the.
Is that right?
My favorite thing about Andy Reid is if you look up like Andy Reid punt, pass, kick, teenager, he has this like video of him when he was 13 throwing, like, you know how they have like those kid competitions, like who can throw the ball the furthest, who can punt it the furthest. Like, Andy Reid at the age of 13 looked bigger and more built than like all the adults I know in real life. Like, he's just double the size of every other 13-year-old. He's like crazy genes. But yeah, anyway, shout out Andy Reid. I think I listen to the Kelsey brothers podcast a lot. Jason and Travis, they have a pod, and I mean, obviously Travis plays for the Chiefs under Andy Reid and says so many nice things about him. So that probably kind of subconsciously biases my opinion there, because that's probably the only sports pod I listen to regularly.
Nice. What is your favorite era of art, Deeze?
Probably Impressionism. I think once I went to the MoMA and saw the water lilies in person and just how big everything was and all of the little detail that went into all the strokes that you can't comprehend on a computer screen, I really like how they went away from like being realistic to going off how you feel. You know, I'm big on vibes and feelings. So I would say Impressionism, even though I'm sure that's an answer a lot of people say.
No, I don't think so.
It's been pretty diverse.
Nice. Okay.
All the art.
When was your first psychedelic experience?
My first psychedelic experience was in 2021. It was the summer.
That was trippy.
It was the summer that I left my full-time job and started working for Tessera. I was microdosing mushrooms for a month. I was taking a 1/4 gram or 1/8 of a gram every 2 to 3 days and just like working my old job, where I would just work from home and do my 2 to 3 hours of work a day. And before I left that job, I had never had a, we'll just say like a hero's dose. And shortly after I got the job working in Web3 for Fractional at the time, I decided I was just going to eat 1/8 on a Saturday morning. And I went for a wild ride and went on my own hero's journey. And I think looking back, I always like to, you know, caution people not to go from microdosing to eating 1/8 of mushrooms, but it really did change how I looked at life. Like you feel ego death when you take a hero's dose, and that ego death kind of feels like you've died, and you come back to life with this newfound gratitude or thankfulness for being alive and the experience that we get as a human being. Like, you realize that nobody owes you anything. Life is extremely fragile. It can all end in a fucking blink of an eye. You just walk outside and a car might not see you and just clip you. You don't know. But it just made me much more thankful for each day. And yeah, that was only 2 summers ago.
I love how hallucinogenics have evolved. You know, I mean, I started in the late 90s or whatever. I'm a little bit older, and we would just gobble down random things that people had in tinfoil. But now people are like, well, I microdosed, and then I eventually did this, and I had this. We would just be like, hey, eat this, you know, and people are like, oh.
Like, is it in tinfoil?
The walls would start melting, and you're just like, what was that? Like, I don't know, you know. But I think people are a lot smarter about it now, which is good. You shouldn't just randomly eat things people give you in tinfoil.
Yeah, we're seeing.
I learned that the hard way in the 90s.
There's a good amount of research too that is showing that there are medical reasons to use psychedelics. It's not just a recreational drug that people are taking because they either want to escape reality or feel good in the moment, but it is like a brain neuron pathway shifting drug that gives you brand new perspectives on your life and the people around you in a way that is really hard to explain until you feel it. Yeah, I never want to like be the guy who's like, I always think of I have a 16-year-old brother and a 16-year-old sister, and then a sister who's 13. And I try to be a good role model for them. And when I was doing my GM stuff, you know, my brother got caught with a vape, and he's like 14. And it's like, yeah, you don't need to be vaping weed when you're 14. Like, I had to kind of recalibrate how I was acting publicly so that my siblings were not thinking that the path to success is posting yourself doing drugs on the internet.
For sure.
And that was
smart.
You know, that took some introspection to do that. But yeah, it's one of those things when I'm saying with psychedelics or weed or whatever, it's like, I just want to caveat with, you know, you want to be really thoughtful about your drug use. You don't want to just be abusing drugs for recreational purposes. I tried abusing mushrooms to see what it would look like. I spent basically 5 days between Christmas and New Year's in 2021 going into 2022, tripping my balls off. And by the end of the 5 days, I thought I was in like Inception level dreams, and I had to get out of them. And I had to have my like wife move our guns because I thought I had to shoot myself to get out of these dreams because I couldn't discern reality from what was in my head. And then ever since that experience, I've been a lot more careful and intentful with psychedelics. And I'd rather just other people learn from my mistakes and not fall into that rabbit hole of, oh, just like do some drugs and open up your mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to.
Yeah, no, it's smart to be intentional about it. Definitely.
Very smart. Yeah. Deeze, what are some things about you or an aspect about your personality that you think most people don't know?
I'm introverted. I think of the like, or maybe antisocial extrovert is the right word, or I'm introverted, one of the two. But I actually need a lot of time by myself to recharge. I am social, but I think a lot of people just think of me as like an extrovert who gets a lot of energy when I'm around a bunch of people. And I don't. I'm very tired out after NFT events when I'm around 20, 40, 60 people in a room for 3 to 5 days in a row. Like, that's just too much energy for me. And I just go home and recharge. I might drop off the grid for a bit where I only tweet a few times a day and I don't host spaces. And that's just for me to kind of get my energy back. And I think a lot of people just expect that I'm this extrovert who can just always be on. But I'm actually pretty introverted.
You craving a moment alone in the dank?
What's one piece of art that you'd like to own but you don't?
Can it be in a museum?
It can be anything. Yeah, it can be anything.
It would be The Eternal City by Peter Bloom, and it's in the MoMA right now.
I don't think I know that piece.
I never knew the piece, and I went through the MoMA in, I think it was 2021. NFT NYC was my first trip to the MoMA. And I looked at the Dalís and the Monets and everything. But this piece, The Eternal City, just captured me for like 10 minutes. It's this piece that was made around World War II. It has some pretty big invasion / like fascist vibes. There's kind of this Jack in the Box that maybe resembles Mussolini or one of the dictators coming out of the foreground in the bottom right. And then there's kind of this like very dark tone underground. Like you can kind of see, to me, it kind of almost looks like mafia or like people who are in the gray area. And then you have like a gypsy off to the left, and you have in the very like it kills everything, like, or not kills wasn't the right word, like everything about it is awesome. Like the landscape in it, the mountains and the trees and all that is beautiful. And then it's telling the story. You can see the hometown people kind of being overran by outsiders, and you see they're like in the foreground, I believe to the left is like maybe a Greek or Roman pillar that has now crumbled, and it's showing kind of how a lot of culture is destroyed when there's wars and invasions. And it just hit me so hard. I just sat there. I was like bringing people over to it because I went to the moment like 20 people. And I'm like, have you seen this shit? Like, come over here. Like, it's like no one ever taught me about the Eternal City in any class I've ever had on art or anything. But when I saw it in person, like the colors fit my style, like the bright blue and green, and then kind of the red coming out of the base of the jack-o'-lantern, but there's still a lot of like cool undertones. It just captured me. So that would be the piece that I would want in my house, because it's
beautiful. Yeah.
It's the piece. I've been to a good amount of museums since then, and I've never felt that way when looking at a piece of art.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally know that feeling. All right, here's a big one. What's your ideal afterlife scenario?
That's a good one. I think reincarnation with no knowledge or remembering of the past life is what I think would be ideal. Or maybe not ideal, but that's what I think would make the most sense. It's like your matter kind of decomposes back into the earth. None of your matter is like created or destroyed. It's just shifting forms. And, you know, to come back into something else that you have no recollection of seems kind of natural. It kind of reminds me of the mushroom trip I had where, you know, you feel like you die and you come back to life, but you do have a recollection. I could see death being like, you feel like you die, and then you're just a new thing, but you have no idea what you were in your past. I think that's freeing. Like, I don't want to be an immortal, eternal being. I think there's something that is freeing about the finiteness of our existence, and to go against that would feel weird. Like, I don't know, like something about it being finite gives it meaning, and then to restart over is something else that you don't know, is like you get to develop meaning in a whole new way and kind of exist forever even though you don't realize it.
I understand.
You know, every time we hit that question, I'm like, that's sort of like, I feel like that's always where we want to leave it, right?
It would be hard to. Oh no, you know what? Just because you said that, Dan, I'm gonna go out of sequence. What's your favorite pizza topping?
I mean, I'm a very plain guy. It's normally pepperoni or margarita pizza. If I'm feeling really out there, I like to do bacon and banana pepper. That's a nice combo. But yeah, I mean, it's pepperoni or bacon and banana pepper.
Yeah, need to end on a big question like that one.
For sure. It's hyper meaningful. Yo, Deeze, it's been like so refreshing to chat with you. It's great to know that there are collectors and people like you, you know, in the crypto art scene, still playing around, still feeling tickled by it, still tickling others. I don't even know how many questions we got to, but it's been so real. Thank you for hanging with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I feel like we just scratched the surface. There's a lot to talk about, so appreciate you guys.
You're gonna have to come back, dude. We're gonna have you back on the Dankness soon.
Hey, anytime, man. I'm available, so anytime you want to dive into stuff, let me know. I'm in.
Brilliant.
Thanks, brother.
This has been wonderful,
Well,
man. Thank you guys so much for inviting me on. Really, I mean, Jason in particular, been following you for so long, and I just think you're such a good leader in the space. You kind of embody everything that crypto art should be. Maybe not everything it is right now, but I think you are the embodiment of like pure good vibes crypto art. So this has just been awesome to get to talk to you, Dan. Nice to finally put a face to your name. We've been in chat rooms and a whole bunch of other smaller things together, but we've never, I don't think, met in person or gotten to speak in voice. So it's nice to put a face to the name and get to talk to you too.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for coming by.
It. Yeah, thank you.
Everyone stick around for a little bit. We have a little bit more today's episode, but first, a pre-roll.
Hi, it's Benny here. I'm a 13-year-old schoolboy from London, fascinated by the world of cryptocurrencies. Last year, I launched my own NFT project called Weird Wells, and it went viral. As a young person who's grown up in these rapidly changing times, it's extremely important to document the crypto art and digital assets movement, and that's why I'm honoured to be a part of New Here. New Here is both a film and an NFT project by Dan Sickles, which aims to capture the stories within the crypto art movement, featuring some of the greatest minds within the space, such as Tyler Hobbs, G Money, Claire Silver, and Snowthrow. There's 3 ways you can get involved with the project. The first is to head over to their Twitter and give them a follow. The second is to jump into our Discord, where we have an extremely vibrant community. And the last is to mint a newbie NFT, which you can do so to support the project.
Or at newhere.xyz.
I love it.
Yo, that was a trip. Want to thank our guest, Deeze, for coming by today. Thank you so much for spending your time with us.
And I'm pretty sure everybody who's anybody on Twitter already follows Deeze on Twitter, so this feels a little redundant, but make sure to follow him at Deeze, at Deeze, if you're not already. And if you're not already, then what's wrong with you?
Much love to Stella with the Danktones. Love to Flood for his incredible graphic work with the Danktones. Be sure to check them out on async.art.
And as always, you can find us on the interwebs at thedankness.xyz, newhere.xyz,
that's right,
and
baby.
clubnft.com.
Yeah.
You can also catch us on our personal accounts at Artnome, that's at ARTNOME, and at Dan Sickles, that's at DAN_SICKLES, so at Dan_Sickles.
Without further ado, I'm really going to miss y'all. But in the meantime, Artnome and I sincerely hope you have an absolutely dank day. Stella, take us out.
Danknotes. Danknotes. Danknotes.
Yep, degenerates.
Flood and Stella are audio-visual artists collaborating to make waves in the Dankiverse with their trippy, acid-infused art project called the Danktones. They have been super busy lately, working around the clock to create some mind-bending image composition NFT art that's about to turn heads in the community. They're hitting all the retro music store vibes. The podcast cover art includes stickers, holographics, shrink wrap, and even some redacted sound effects. Yes, you heard that right. This wild duo is bringing back physical media vibes in a big way with this release. But it's not just the medium that's impressive, it's the audio-visual art itself. Flood and Stella's art is truly something special, with bright, bold colors and intricate patterns and zany sound effects that will have you feeling like you're tripping on acid. So if you're a fan of NFT art and you're looking for something a little bit different, definitely check out Flood and Stella's The Danktones project. Thanks for your time. Have a dank 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 dank.